Batwoman, episode 3. Freeze. So you already know what this one is. It's your boy Icon with some DC TV. So in our last episode, we'll get to the freeze in a second. In our last episode, Ryan had confronted her mom, her actual birth mom, and that's pretty much where the episode cut off. So they give us one scene where there's some kids on a bus, and one of the kids had found one of Victor Freeze's liquid nitrogen canisters. The kid accidentally let it off. It froze the bus. So it shows that Ryan's mom is at her penthouse office, and she's watching the news report about the freezing bus. And then Ryan comes back into the office. And then she tells her, the mom's like, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get to finish our conversation from yesterday. And then, she was just like, oh, I see that you've risen to the ranks. You got your degree. And then Ryan was like, she said that you've climbed the corporate ladder, and become a success to be acting CEO of Wayne Enterprises. And then she was like, you've done well for yourself. And I'm like, okay, so this is actually going to be a positive conversation. And then Ryan even continued, because she was just like, listen, she was like, I didn't come here to judge you or blame you. She was like, whatever you were going through at the time, you were young, you were scared, whatever. She was like, I'm not here to judge you. She said, I just wanted to get to meet you, get to know you, and find out what happened. And I'm like, wow, this is a very adult, conversation. And then her mom flipped the switch, and then she was just like, before I waste your time, bitch. She's just like, I just want you to know, I don't want a relationship with you. I don't want to have anything to do with you, because, and like I said in previous episodes, Ryan is the result of an affair. Her mom had a husband. She cheated on her husband with someone else. He knocked her up. She got pregnant. And then, at the risk of corporate shame, that's why she went to such great lengths to hide the pregnancy and to give up Ryan and not have anything to do with her. And then she told Ryan dead ass, she was like, yo, I don't want to have anything to do with you. And then she was like, if you continue to pursue a relationship with me, she said that I'll take you down, and I'll take Wayne Enterprises along with you. And then, this gentleman walked in the room at that point, and he was introduced to Ryan as the mom's son. What was her name? Jet, something Jet. Basically, Mrs. Jet, we'll call her Mrs. Jet. Mrs. Jet's son, which is Ryan's brother. But she didn't get a chance to... She didn't introduce them as brother and sister. She was just like, oh, that's my son. That's my real son that I had with my real husband, because this is my real family, and you don't fit in the bill. So then, she kicks Ryan out of the building. Ryan, she's talking to Sophi, because Sophi knew that, that there was a child. She knew she had a sibling. But then Ryan asked her, she was like, how come you didn't tell me about the brother? And then Sophi was like, because you said you wanted the whole thing kept as quietly and under wrap as possible. She said you wanted as little information as humanly possible. So I didn't see the point in bringing it up, but then, Ryan was just like, then Sophi said, she was like, well, was the brother at least cool? And then she was like, well, I didn't get a chance to really know him or speak to him, because my mom basically kicked me out. And then Sophi had asked her, because she felt bad. And then she was just like, well, is there anything you need me to do? Is there something you need from me? And then she was just like, nah. She's like, didn't you hear that, a Mr. Freeze canister, got let loose on Gotham? She's like, I got to go take care of that. And then she dipped and just left Sophi standing there looking stupid, so, but then she didn't want to talk to she didn't what she was feeling about the whole thing with her mom. She didn't want to talk to Sophi about it, but as soon as she goes into the Batcave, she immediately tells Luke and Mary. And then Mary gave her a hug, and they're just like, oh, we're sorry that it happened. And then, Luke had said, he was like, how did you even know that your mom was alive? That your birth mother was alive anyway. And then you hear Alice in the background, coughing. And then when the camera pans to Alice, she's sitting Indian style, legs crossed on top of one of the computers. And that was the coolest, funniest shot ever. And I like what they're doing with Alice, to where they'll have the Bat team in the Batcave doing Bat things. But then Alice is in the room, but we don't know Alice is in the room until she decides to make her presence felt. And every time Alice makes her presence felt, it's always really funny. So I enjoy those scenes a lot, especially with her just sitting on top of the computer. I thought that was a nice touch. But then she was just and Alice was just okay. She was like, no applause for me. She said, we all bitched and complained that I killed Ryan's mommy. I provide her with her birth mother, and no one seems to care about me. And then she starts coughing. And then she basically told him, she said that she was sick and she wanted to take a sick day. She said she didn't feel good, and because she said she didn't feel good because Luke had injected nanotech into her system, and she wanted Mary to check her out. So then Luke had said, because at this point the police had confiscated the canister that the kid had used on the bus. So Luke was just like, listen, let Alice have her sick day. We don't need Alice, because he was like, I know where the canister is. So go get the canister. He said it's in the GCPD. So go get it. bring it back, and then, and then we can put it back in the case, like in the bat case with the rest of the bat trophies. Ryan goes down to GCPD, the canister's gone. It then takes us to a scene where there's this group of like mercenary people, henchmen, goons, whatever you want to call them. They bust into this old lady house, and then they snatch up this old lady. And when they snatched up the old lady, she's like the one of the mercenaries, the lead mercenary. She said to the old lady, she said, I want to know how you were. She said, I want to know how you were frozen for 20 years and you survived. And then then after that, Batwoman and Luke, they ended up, Luke went on the computer, and then he ended up, like looking up some information about some people. And then some of the information that he looked up, he pulled up the file on Victor Freeze, and he pulled up the file on Nora Freeze. And he showed a picture of Nora Freeze, and Nora was like 70 years old. And at that point, I was just like, hold up. Because I saw the Elseworlds crossover, and Nora Freeze was played by Stephen Amell, the Green Arrow's real life wife. And there was a scene where Nora Freeze got into a fight with Killer Frost, and she was not 70 years old. So at first I was like, did we just like retcon that? Did Crisis retcon that? Did we change it? But no, what Luke had said was that was Nora Freeze that we saw, because he said 3 years ago during the Elseworlds crossover. He said 3 years ago, he said that Victor Freeze is basically dead. Like we lost Mr. Freeze. He said Victor Freeze, he froze his wife to try to come up with a cure for her. And they eventually did come up with a cure, but Victor Freeze died before he had a chance to actually see his wife, be resuscitated from this cure. They gave her the cure, but then because they gave her the cure, she was cured of the McGregor syndrome. But because she was cured of the McGregor syndrome and she was unthawed, because they said she was thawed for 20 years, after she thawed out, they said that the 20-year time gap kind of got to her, and then she kind of like lost her marbles, and because she kind of went crazy because of the time gap, they just threw her in Arkham. But because of the Elseworlds crossover break-in, when Supergirl, Green Arrow, Flash, and the gang were trying to get the book and everything, and then they let all those prisoners out of their cells, Nora ended up getting away, and nobody's seen her since during then. It's been 3 years. She ended up going to her sister's house, and what's happening now is the reason why she's 70. Although that being cryogenically frozen, it kept her from aging. It basically slowed down the aging process, but it didn't stop the aging process. It's not like she thawed out and now her body just continues to age as though she never left. It's actually like time is actually catching up with her, and now she progressed to 35, she went from 35 to like a 70-year-old woman. So Batwoman goes down to Nora's hideout. Nora and her sister hideout. I'm so used to the villain thing. Batwoman goes down to Nora and her sister's house, and she sees that the house has been ransacked. I guess they ended up tracking the cold signature, and they tracked the mercenaries to an abandoned warehouse. The mercenaries bring Nora and her sister to an abandoned warehouse, and they end up finding one of Victor Freeze's cryo chambers. Actually, it wasn't an abandoned warehouse. I believe they said it was Ace Chemicals, Joker reference. And the mercenaries' whole thing is she said that her boss wants to know how she stopped the aging process, and they were trying to get the two of them to get the cryo chamber machine to work. They they couldn't get it to work. Then eventually they got it to work, and then once they got it to work, the woman was like, how do you turn it on? And then and then that's what Nora said. She said that, listen, although you can get it to work, she said that you're not going to be able to stop the aging process. So even if you freeze yourself, you're going to end up like me. So it's dumb to even try to go in the thing. But then they were just like, oh, but they weren't having it, and they really wanted to, like, they were going to use one of them as like a test dummy to try to like see if they can get it to work. Batwoman shows up. She ends up beating up all the mercenaries. She saves Nora. She tells Nora to go to Mary's clinic. And then after Nora leaves, like she tried to save her sister because her sister was still caught up. And then she's fighting the mercenaries. She's beating up the mercenaries. She gets double teamed. She gets overpowered, and they knock her out. They put Batwoman in the cryo chamber. And then when they put Batwoman in the cryo chamber, the mercenary woman told the sister, she was like, oh, turn the chamber on. But then the sister said, but without the canister, without the liquid nitrogen, like, she's going to die of hypothermia. And then the woman was like, I don't give a shit. I just want to see that the machine works. Turn the machine on. So then they turned the machine on, and now Batwoman is dying in the cryo chamber. She ends up hollering at Luke, and then she tells Luke, she's like, listen, I need you to hit the streets and go look for Nora Freeze. But then he was just like, but you're trapped in a cryo chamber. And then he said, I should come help you. But she was like, no, you need to go save Nora Freeze. Like, don't come for me. So of course Luke goes and, and saves Ryan. He calls Sophi, and he has Sophi man the comms in the Batcave. Luke goes down to the warehouse. He kicks everyone's ass. The mercenaries end up running away. Luke gets his hands on the canister, and he brings Batwoman. He saves Batwoman and brings her out of the cryo chamber. While Batwoman was in the cryo chamber, though, while Luke was on his way, she was talking to Sophi on comms. And then Sophi was trying to keep her awake because Batwoman was falling asleep, and they said if you fall asleep, you're going to die. So then Sophi was just like, well, since you're trapped in a cryo chamber, now's the perfect time to tell, for me to tell you that I'm mad at you. And then she's like, why are you mad at me? And then she was like, because you had me do all the dirty work regarding your mother, but then when it came down to it, you shared your feelings with the Bat team and you left me out of it. And then she was just like, did I hurt your feelings? And then she was just like, yo, like, she was like, you don't know anything about me. She's like, you keep putting me away at arm's length. And she said, you don't even know the type of person I am. So now the two of them are kind of like going back and forth. And then Ryan ends up seeing Luke show up, beat up the bad guys, and then saves her from the cryo chamber. So then, then after that, they get in the car. They end up going after the mercenaries now. They're trying to bring them to justice. And then while they're in the car, Sophi and Ryan start flirting with each other. Luke looking at them like, are you flirting with Sophi while we're trying to catch bad guys? And then, they're driving off. While they're driving off, the mercenaries end up blowing up a bridge. Like they blow a hole in the bridge. And then Batwoman did some cool shit. She, like a la like Gotham Knights, Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, whatever you want to say. Batwoman's driving towards the big hole in the bridge. And as she's driving towards the hole in the bridge, Luke just pops out of the ejector seat, flies up in the air. He sprays the hole with the liquid nitrogen. She goes running over the ice. And then they end up stopping the armored truck and they beat up the mercenaries. They save Nora's sister. The mercenaries get in the car, but they do have Victor Freeze's book that teaches you how to build and operate the cryo chamber. So she said to the sisters, she was like, oh, I hope your brother-in-law was able to take good notes. And then they jumped in the car and bounced. Now I want to know who this person is, because whoever this person is that wanted this freeze information is most likely the big bad of the season. And we got a little hint of it now that it's only been season 3. So we'll see where we go from there. And then, Ryan had said to Sophi, she was just like, yo, that ice move was badass, right? And then she was like, yeah, it was alright. And then she was just like, damn, woman. She's like, you mad hard to please. And I was just like, no comment. And this was Archer. I'd have been like, phrasing, boom. So, and then back at Mary's clinic, Nora Freeze showed up to the clinic, and then while Nora was at the clinic and then Mary was checking her out, Alice basically put a knife to Nora's throat and and threatened to kill her unless Mary removed the nanites that are in her system, because Alice was faking, like the entire sick thing. She just wanted Mary to take the nanites out of her body. And then, the two of them got into a conversation, and then, Alice had said to Mary, she was just like, oh, she was like, you're the third wheel on the Bat team and they don't pay attention to you unless they need you for something. And she said, that's your place on the team. It's just to keep quiet until you're needed. But then, Alice had also broken into some of her cabinet files. And then she read up on Luke that Luke actually has a condition that prevents him from wearing the Batwing suit, and that he should not be wearing the Batwing suit. And then, that's when Alice was just like, oh, are you keeping this secret, from Queen Bat because you're afraid that she'll turn on you? Because she's like, that's what's going to happen. She said, if you out Luke on his condition, they're going to turn on you because you're the weak link and you're the bottom of the food chain. But then Alice herself, she was also going through some issues because she was saying that she was hallucinating a lot. And that's why she wanted the nanites out of her system, because her hallucinations were making her see things about the nanites that weren't there. And then, that's what Nora Freeze was just like, look, she was just like, you can kill me, bitch. Because she's like, I'm tired of people trying to save me. And then that obviously didn't work. And then, then after that didn't work, then Alice basically just like went crazy and like walked away. But now that everything's safe, they saved the day. There was a scene where Nora and her sister were just out in the park where her and Victor had their first date. And then her sister was just like, oh, we should try to put you back in cryostasis. And then Nora was like, no. She said, like, I live my life. She's like, I'm tired of people trying to save me. And she said, I just want to enjoy the life that I have. And then when it's over, it's over. So she was just like, just be my sister and stop trying to be my savior. And then the two of them ended up being happy. Ryan ended up thanking Luke, for saving the day, but then Mary showed up, and then Mary was just like, well, he shouldn't have been out there, and I shouldn't have cleared him for combat duty because he has trauma. He has like PTSD after getting shot last season. And then that's when, Ryan was just like, well, hold up. She was like, she said to Luke, she was like, are you okay to go out there or are you not okay to go out there? And I feel like Ryan should know better than to do that, because even in professional, we'll use professional sports as an example. Whether you're a basketball player, football player, boxer, MMA fighter, you never let the athlete tell you if they're able to go, because they're always going to say yes. Whether it's the Super Bowl, whether it's the NBA Finals, whether it's the Olympics, whether you're competing for any sort of championship, the talent will always tell you they're perfectly fine, and it is always 100% bullshit. But with that being said, Ryan has a point, because although Luke may have issues, he may have like internal damage. If he didn't go out in the Batwing suit, she would have died. So she told Mary, she said, listen, just keep monitoring his physical progress, and if something actually does happen, we'll take care of it. But until that happens, I actually need him to watch my back, because it's rough in these streets. And then Luke got mad at Mary, because he was like, you shouldn't have said nothing. And then, Alice even hinted, at the fact that Mary actually like loves Luke, and then she was like, I don't love him. And then, so that was kind of awkward. So I was like, we're doing the Hamill Fox thing, like we're slowly getting there. So I'm perfectly fine with that. Like let's like, I don't care how long it takes, as long as we get there. And then they said after that, the Bat team walked away, and now Mary feels some kind of way about it. Ryan ended up talking to Sophi at the end of the episode, because earlier her brother had went to Wayne Enterprises, and he said to Ryan, he was like, yo, you and I, because he told her, he was like, like, I'm your brother. I found out that I deduced that I was your brother based on all the sneaking around that happened when you were born. We're only a year apart. My mom disappeared for 9 months. Her and my dad weren't speaking for for a whole year or whatever. So he was just like, I'm not stupid. You're my sister. But he said that because her mom is very controlling and never plans on stepping down from the company, he'll never have a chance to actually prove to her what he can actually do. But because his sister now is the CEO of Wayne, he wants to team up with her, and the two of them can build an empire together and teach her mom a lesson. But Ryan told Sophie, she was like, I'm not going to do that, because I got to put the Bat team first. And plus, like, my mom don't want anything to do with me. She said it's going to be nice to have a brother, but I'm not going to team up with him. Said I got to focus on my life and like whatever it is that I'm doing. And that was nice. And then in the final scene, after Mary went to go talk to Nora and talk to the sister and let them know that everything was okay with the GCPD and blah, 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 she ended up walking away. And then while she was walking away, a vine came out of the bushes, grabbed her, snatched her up, and dragged her and dragged her through the thing. So I'm just like, okay, they tease, like, it's almost like every episode there's a Poison Ivy tease, and I'm just like, is she the big bad? Are we actually getting Poison Ivy? I mean, we almost have to get Poison Ivy now, because she snatched up Mary. So I'm interested in that. So that was it. That was the episode, and thank you for tuning in. There's a lot of cool things that are happening. Like I said, the dynamic between Ryan and the family, the whole Poison Ivy thing with her potentially being the big bad, because they did cast an actual actress to play Poison Ivy, because out of all the Batman trophies and all the old Batman villains, Poison Ivy is the only actual villain that's probably still around. So, it'd be interesting to see that, where the Luke Mary thing goes with him and his PTSD, and even Alice, because in the end there was a scene where Alice was back in her cell, and she was looking at her arm, and she saw the nanites like crawling through her arm, and then she's just like, yo, I'm losing my damn mind. So that's it. We're only in episode 3, and there's a lot of interesting things that are happening. Hey, does Bruce Wayne come back? Do we get a Kate Kane? Like, we'll see what happens. But share your questions and concerns, like, where do you think the season goes? What do you like about it so far? Who do you like so far? And we will talk about it. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Instagram. Hit the notification bell. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you love DC TV, if you love the Arrowverse, HBO Max, even a little bit of Marvel, I got you covered, and we gonna ride it till the wheels fall off. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. So until next time, for episode 3, for Freeze, bundle up, and about this. Yeah!